All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and today we're going to be talking about everything you need to know before tuning your B58. I actually made a video like this about 4.5 years ago, but a lot of you have asked me to make an update to it since so many things have changed. We've got so many new features and stuff. So this is kind of more of a breakdown of how things would work for me if I were to start tuning my car in 2025. And of course, if you've already gone down this journey, maybe you've started tuning your car a little bit, this should hopefully give you a little bit of insight on what I recommend as you're planning the next steps of your build. So let's go ahead and talk about it, and hopefully you guys find this video useful.
Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future.
So the first thing, of course, is making sure you have everything you need to flash your car. And when you flash your car, typically it's all done through your phone. So you want to download the app for your preferred tuning software. We'll talk a little bit more about those later, but download the app. They're all free, and that will allow you to flash tunes from your phone. Then the next thing you need is some way to connect to your car, and most people will go with a wireless adapter. The one I recommend is the MHD universal adapter, and that will allow you to flash your car for the engine, the transmission, scanning for codes, run diagnostics, pretty much everything you would want to do. And the good thing is the universal adapter works for everything, whereas some of the older adapters may need to be switched out depending on what you're doing on your car. Now, if you don't want one of those, they still do make the older black adapters, and those will still allow you to flash the DME of your car. Again, just keep in mind that depending on your platform, it might not work for everything. Now, the next thing is to figure out what you need to flash your car, and the first step to flashing your car is unlocking the DME. That will allow you to actually write the updated software to the DME that gets out the extra performance. Now, there are three main ways that you can unlock your DME. One is through the OBD. This is, of course, the preferred method because while you're flashing your car, it will unlock at the same time and you won't need any extra step or any extra cost. However, unfortunately, BMW put out some software updates in 2020, and that made it impossible to flash your car through the OBD unlock process. So even for vehicles that were previously allowed to flash their car through an OBD unlock solution, if you have that updated software, you will require what's called a bench unlock. That requires removing the DME, manually connecting it to a computer, and unlocking it using software that way. But the good news is that's not the only way. I was able to unlock my X7 using the MHD unlocker tool. So with those available now, you can actually unlock the car with your phone, but you do still need the extra hardware in order to do that. So it's a one-time thing unless you ever do service at the dealer where they could potentially update your software again. And then that would put you back to potentially having to re-unlock your car with the bench unlock method. Now, the only other option besides that is a FEM2 unlock, and the FEM2 unlock works by sending your DME to a company called FEM2, and they have an unlock solution that they can do in-house. Unfortunately, this isn't something that's readily available around the world, so this is the one company that's able to do it. But if your DME software date is after June of 2020, chances are you will need a FEM2 unlock. But if you really want to know for sure which one of these unlock methods work, the easiest thing to do is download your preferred tuning software, connect to the car through your Wi-Fi adapter, and then check to see what the unlock status is. And they will be able to check the exact software on your car and tell you whether you can unlock through the OBD, if you need a bench unlock, or if FEM2 is going to be the only solution for you. So that's kind of my recommendation, just to make it all seamless. Just download your tuning software that you want to use, check it using your Wi-Fi adapter, and then that will help you plan out your tuning process. Now, speaking of which, you have to pick a tuning platform that you want to go with, and there are four main platforms that are used for the B58. The thing about it is, I think most people really stick with two. The main two you'll hear about are MHD tuning as well as boot mode. And these two platforms have done the most to kind of push the boundaries of what's available on our cars. They added features constantly, and they're continuing to expand what their tuning software is capable of with a really broad and wide custom tuning network. Now, the other options are MG Flasher, which was really up and coming initially. I was really excited to see what they were going to come out with, but it seems like lately they've just kind of fallen behind, especially because some of the advanced features took a lot longer to come out on their platform. People haven't been using them as much. So they still have great tunes, still have great software and apps to use, but it's just not really as popular. And then the last option is Ecutech. And the reason why I think this one isn't as popular now is, one, they don't offer any off-the-shelf maps. So if you download their software, every single tune that you get through them will have to be a custom tune through another tuner. So it adds a lot of cost, adding, the cost of the software to get the license and then paying a tuner to tune your car. And then also they were really late and kind of hesitant to jump onto the FEM2 Unlock bandwagon. So when this first initially came out, there weren't really any other options and everybody jumped on it. And MHD and Boot Mode were very quick to offer the capability to use their software with the FEM2 unlock method, and even all of their advanced features are available through them as well. However, Ecutech was a lot more tight-lipped about their software capabilities and how to make it work with the FEM2 unlock process, and they really need to work with FEM2 if everything's going to be able to be implemented through that. So they weren't really one of the main ones that you could use for cars after the June 2020 cutoff, and it just kind of slowed down their business. So still a great tuning platform. A lot of people still swear by it, but again, it's just not as popular because they were slower to jump onto that side of things. So now that you've picked your software, let's go ahead and talk about your tuning options. And for the companies that do have off-the-shelf maps, there are a couple different ones available. The first one is a stage 1 tune, and this is still, in my opinion, super underrated. It is the best bang for your buck mod that you can do to your car to get horsepower per dollar. Nothing will ever come to this kind of value, and unfortunately, this is just when the mod bug strikes. But you pay for your license fee, buy your off-the-shelf maps if they're sold separately, and flash your car. You don't need any hardware, you don't need any fueling changes or anything else. You don't need a charge pipe to make the car safe to drive. It just works out of the box. And the good news is, especially for Gen 1 cars, where we started with between 320 and 360 horsepower, it pretty much by default puts you up to around 400 horsepower on pump gas, and you can get up to around 420 horsepower on ethanol. So those are some really nice gains, and even for the Gen 2 cars, like the 2-port engine in my X7, it gives you an extra 70, 80 horsepower just by turning up the boost and adjusting fueling to compensate. Now, keep in mind, if you're flashing your DME, I typically recommend getting XHP. These cars make a lot of torque. The turbos work very easily. And so you want to make sure that you have a transmission tune paired with the engine tune to make everything work together seamlessly. It's not 100% required, but there is a torque limit set by the transmission, so it won't allow the maximum amount of torque to actually make it to the wheels. That's where I think it really is nice to have a transmission tune to pair with the DME tune. It also comes with a bunch of other features, things that you can use in the cluster and just smoothing out your driving and enjoying the transmission more. But just for the maximum amount of performance, the fastest shifts, all of that stuff, I do highly recommend pairing XHP transmission tunes with your preferred DME tuning software. Now, after you've gone stage 1, if you want a little bit more, stage 2 is going to be your next step. And stage 2 comes from just adding a downpipe. Again, you don't need an intake or a charge pipe or a full exhaust. All of those things are good and well. They'll make the car maybe spool a little bit more quickly and, of course, improve the sound and the driving enjoyment. But all you actually need from a performance and reliability standpoint is a downpipe with a high flow cat, or preferably no cat at all. That will remove the main restriction behind the turbo that will allow you to safely turn up the boost a little bit higher. Now, on Gen 1 cars, this typically makes around 420 horsepower or so on pump gas. On Gen 2 cars, it might make a little bit more, especially on the lower compression engines, but it really just depends on the software. The real sauce comes with ethanol. On a Gen 1, you can typically make around 440 horsepower, and on a Gen 2 B58, you can make over 500 wheel horsepower. And the reason you're able to do that is because the Gen 2 B58 comes with a higher flowing fuel system from the factory. So they're able to turn the boost up even higher. Even on an ethanol mix, they can make over 20 PSI, and that's where all the magic happens. So you can see why it's pretty addicting for those guys. If you have a Gen 2 B58, you're really just a downpipe and the right fuel away from making 150 plus horsepower over what your car came with from the factory. Now, the good news is if you have a Gen 1, you can take advantage of that as well, because the Gen 2 high pressure fuel pump is a bolt-on upgrade for a Gen 1 B58. And if you do that upgrade paired with a downpipe, they have what they call either Stage 2 Plus or Stage 2 HPFP. And those maps are designed specifically to take advantage of a higher flowing high pressure fuel pump with the stock turbo. And the good news is you see pretty similar gains. Typically it's a little bit less. You don't see as many cars making over 500 wheel horsepower because the turbo is slightly smaller. And of course our compression is higher than a lot of the 6-port engines, but we do still make between 480 and 500 pretty consistently on an ethanol mix. So again, that's where the magic happens. I tell people either Stage 1 or Stage 2 Plus. Adding a downpipe doesn't have as big a gains in my experience, but the high pressure fuel pump upgrade and running ethanol really helps make the car come alive. Now, keep in mind, if you don't have ethanol available, like a lot of the people in Europe, it's not, something you can just typically get from a gas station. Methanol is a very common upgrade to pair with your B58. It will give you pretty much all of the same benefits. You just have to run a separate tank and pump for your meth system, but it gives you the extra octane that you need, as well as the extra fuel flow to run more boost and more timing. These cars really like high octane, especially the high compression 11-to-1 engines. You really just need really good fuel in order to get the most out of the stock turbo. So that's the other option I would go with if you don't have E85 available. Now, once you've tuned your car, it's time to take advantage of some of the advanced features. I pretty much only tell people to flash the most advanced maps at this point. It doesn't really make sense to flash a static map unless you have some unique setup. So let's go ahead and talk about what we call MHD Plus, as well as boot mode custom ROM. And they have 3 main features that they integrate into that software update. So the first one is map switching. And what map switching does is it allows you to change the maps using your steering wheel controls to switch between up to 4 different tunes. They can be set based on the different types of fuel that you're running. You can also adjust cold start noise reduction. You can adjust your burbles. You can even adjust like your max boost setting or your torque by gear setting. So like in boot mode, you can pretty much make like a valet mode or something if you're letting somebody borrow your car or drive your car and you don't really trust them. A lot of really cool features built into map switching. So literally using the steering wheel controls, you can go between 1, 2, 3, and 4 and change whatever you want based on the different maps on your car. The next feature is Flex Fuel, and this is probably still the one that I'm most excited about. It was the one that I couldn't wait to use on my cars. And what Flex Fuel does is it allows the tune to automatically adjust for any amount of ethanol. And this is really convenient because if you're mixing pump gas and ethanol, you might not get your mix exactly right if you're not calculating it properly. And so this can make sure that everything stays safe while giving you an optimal amount of power. Now, keep in mind, Flex Fuel is not required to run ethanol. I ran E85, E30, E50, whatever on my car for years before Flex Fuel kits were available. That's pretty much all we had. It's just really important to make sure you test your E85 at the pump and calculate your mix properly. But if you want to take all of the guesswork out and just have the DME tune do all the work, then a Flex Fuel kit is your friend. It just, again, makes things so much more convenient. And especially if you're in an area like me, full E85 works way better than pump gas. The 2 PSI or whatever you end up losing from running higher ethanol mixes is nothing compared to the extra 6 or 8 degrees of timing you get to run. So my car runs faster on fully 85 than pump gas, as most people's cars do. I posted up all of that data in a previous video in case you're interested in seeing that. But yeah, the capability to run full E85 and have the car automatically scale boost and adjust while still making good timing is one of my favorite things to use. Also, the nice thing is you can actually see the Flex Fuel reading in your tuning app. So if you open up your data logger, you can actually see the amount of ethanol in your car, and also you're able to see it in the cluster. It'll actually show it on your tachometer. On my car, since it only goes up to 7,500 RPM, it only accurately displays up to E75, but that's still more than enough for my needs to tell me how much ethanol is in the car. Now, the last thing is anti-lag, and anti-lag is really nice, especially for people that are roll racing, because it helps you build boost while the car is still rolling. So a lot of people like me just use brake boosting. If you hold the brake down while holding down the gas pedal, it'll start to build boost, and then when you release the brake pedal, your car will kind of take off. With anti-lag, you don't have to hold the brake pedal anymore, and it's a lot more consistent. You're not leaning on the pedals and trying to figure out how much boost you're building while maintaining speed and all that good stuff. Now you can use the steering wheel controls to maintain your speed and build up a set amount of boost. And as soon as you let the button go, the car does a rolling launch. So again, really convenient to have for anybody that's roll racing. Now after that, there's really only one step. And I know it makes a lot of people nervous to think about upgrading their turbo, especially because there's no stage 3 off the shelf map, or there's no real default setup that everybody just thinks they can bolt on and go with. But really that is the next step. I think a big turbo isn't as scary as it sounds, and it will allow you to consistently make more power than a comparable stock turbo setup. So for example, even if you only have pump gas available, upgrading the turbo will make more power than the stock turbo on pump gas, so it's absolutely worth it. And of course, if you have E85 available, then upgrading to a big turbo will allow you to stop pushing your stock turbo to its limits and make way more power while working the turbo a lot less. Now, if you're considering supporting mods, what I tell people is the first step is pick your goals. Figure out what fuel you want to run, how much power you want to make, what kind of racing you do, or what style of driving you enjoy. All of that will go into planning out your build, and you need to use those goals to figure out what mods you want to pair with your big turbo. Again, there are so many different options available out there for fueling setups and bolt-ons and upgraded cooling and all of that stuff. You can go with pretty much anything and make the power you're looking for. You just need to figure out what your primary goals are first, and that will help dictate what mods you go with. So if you want a simple setup, you can stick to DI only, upgrade your fuel pump and your injectors, and go that route. If you want to make as much power as possible, then obviously you can go with auxiliary fueling, adding port injection and secondary and third low pressure fuel pumps and all the extra sensors you need. Everything to build your engine and your transmission is also available as well. So it's really just how deep your pockets are and how far you want to go. Outside of that, you really can go with anything. So of course, you can scroll through my videos. I've done everything from staying DI only to going to port injection to going back to DI only. I just like changing stuff, and I've really enjoyed all of the setups. I've run a bunch of fuel pumps and injectors and different setups that I think all worked really well. So if you want to see any reviews or anything like that, you can check out some of the playlists on my channel, and you can see some of the things that I've tested for myself. But otherwise, I think that really sums it all up. This is just, again, a platform that has so many different options available. I think it's almost overwhelming planning out what you want to do with your car, but really there's not a lot of wrong ways that you can go about it. So, plan out your budget, figure out what you want out of the car, and go from there. And I think you'll have a good time. So I think that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.